Master the skill of building lasting connections. Written and published by Audiobook. Introduction. Some people walk into a room, and without saying a word, they're remembered forever. It's not their looks, not their title, not even their words. It's something else entirely. This book is about that something. The invisible thread that ties two strangers together. The moment when a wall silently falls between you and someone else. The rare, unspoken understanding that says, I see you. I get you. You matter. This is the art of building lasting connections. Not just networking. Not small talk. Not performance. But the deep, soul-nourishing kind of human bond that lasts, even in silence. Maybe you've felt disconnected in a crowded room. Maybe you've had conversations where words were exchanged, but nothing was truly said. Maybe, deep down, you've craved more than surface-level interactions, more than nods, likes, or polite replies. You're not alone. We live in a time where people are more accessible than ever, yet more emotionally distant than ever before. We swipe, scroll, comment, but how often do we feel truly seen? This book will change that. You'll learn the psychology behind connection, what creates it, what kills it, and how to rebuild it when it's been lost. You'll hear real stories, not theories. You'll meet people, ordinary and extraordinary, who found their way back to meaningful connection, and those who didn't. And you'll learn exactly how to become the kind of person others remember, not because of what you do, but because of how you make them feel. You'll walk away with practical tools. You'll know how to hold space for someone else without fixing them. How to express yourself so others want to lean in. How to spot emotional blockades and melt them. And perhaps most importantly, you'll learn how to connect deeply with yourself. Because real connection starts within. This book isn't just information. It's transformation. By the end, you'll feel something has shifted. Not just in how you speak, but in how you listen. Not just in who you attract, but in how you show up. You may start to notice that strangers open up to you more easily. That friends call you the moment they need comfort. That people linger in your presence, not because you're loud, but because you're safe. Let me ask you something. What would change in your life if every relationship you touched became richer, deeper, more alive? Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Silent Language of Connection. What makes someone feel understood, even without a single word being spoken? I remember a moment. Not dramatic, not loud, but unforgettable. I was sitting in a hospital waiting room. Fluorescent lights buzzing. Plastic chairs stiff beneath me. My eyes were fixed on the tiled floor, but my mind was 1,000 miles away. Next to me, a woman Saturday. She looked as lost as I felt. Maybe more. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. But then something strange happened. We looked at each other. Just for a second. No smile. No greeting. Just a look. And in that second, something passed between us. A kind of silent truth. You're not alone in this. No words. No names exchanged. But I still remember her face. And I'll never forget the peace that washed over me. That's connection. Real connection doesn't always begin with a sentence. It often starts in the quiet moments. When the heart says what the mouth can't. When presence becomes louder than language. Let's pause for a moment. Before we dive deeper, if this story is opening your eyes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel. It helps us reach more souls just like yours. So let's talk about this invisible thread that binds us. The science of feeling felt. Dr. Daniel Siegel, a pioneer in the field of interpersonal neurobiology, introduced a powerful concept, feeling felt. It's the foundation of all secure relationships. To feel felt means someone isn't just hearing your words, they're experiencing your emotions with you. You don't have to explain every detail. You don't have to convince them of your pain. They get it. Their face softens when yours does. Their body language mirrors yours. Their silence holds space instead of rushing to fill it. This isn't magic. It's biology. Our brains are wired to connect. Mirror neurons light up when we observe another's emotions. The limbic system, our emotional brain, syncs with others in real time. That's why you can feel when someone's present and when they're not. That's why a single look from someone who understands you can make tears rise to your eyes, even before they say a thing. It's not what they know. It's what they see in you. Why most people miss this? We live in a fast world. Performance over presence. Achievement over attunement. And in this rush, we lose the ability to slow down and truly see one another. We're trained to respond instead of reflect, to fix instead of feel, to advise instead of attune. But lasting connection isn't about solving problems. It's about being with someone in their problems. Most people don't need a solution. They need a witness. They need to know their feelings make sense, that their experience isn't crazy, that someone sees them without trying to change them. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly seen, without judgment, without interruption? Now, when was the last time you offered that to someone else? The practice of presence. You don't need training to be this kind of person. You don't need a degree in psychology. You just need to learn one skill: presence. Presence means you're not planning what to say next. You're not trying to sound smart. You're not waiting for your turn to speak. You're here, fully here. The next time someone shares something vulnerable with you, try this: slow your breath. Soften your face. Don't rush to respond. Let silence do some of the work. And when you do speak, say things like, "That makes sense. I hear you. Tell me more." Simple, but powerful. Because in those small moments, you're telling them, "I'm with you. Right here. No fixing. No fleeing. Just here." And that is unforgettable. Real-life reflection. Daniel's story. Daniel was a project manager in his 40s. Highly respected. Always in control. But inside, he felt empty. Every interaction felt hollow. People talked to him about deadlines, data, deliverables. But no one really knew him. Until one day, during a routine meeting, a junior employee asked, "How are you doing, really?" Not as a formality, but with genuine curiosity. Daniel hesitated, then answered honestly for the first time in years, "I'm tired. And I feel like no one sees that." That conversation changed everything. It didn't fix his burnout overnight, but it gave him something rare, a space to be real. And it all started with presence. Not performance. Not perfection. Just presence. Here's the truth. If you want deeper relationships, you don't need to be more interesting. You need to be more interested. You don't need to speak better. You need to listen deeper. Because the deepest human desire isn't to be impressed. It's to be understood. So here's your challenge for today. The next time you speak with someone, anyone, practice real presence. Don't rush. Don't fix. Just be there. You might be surprised what opens up. Chapter 2. The Unseen Walls Within. Why do we hold back from the people we want to be closest to? It's a strange contradiction. We crave closeness. But the moment it starts to feel too real, we pull away. We smile when we want to cry. We say, "I'm fine," when we're not. We change the subject when the room gets too quiet or too honest. Why? Because somewhere along the way, we learned this. Connection is risky. And that lesson, it builds walls. Not the kind you see. Not fences or doors or gates. But invisible walls. Emotional ones. And they're everywhere. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation where you felt like you were shouting through glass? You could see the person. You could hear the words. But something was missing? That's a wall. And most people don't even know they're carrying one. Childhood scripts. Adult walls. These walls often begin in childhood. Maybe you grew up in a home where vulnerability was punished. Or where no one asked how you were feeling, only what you did. Maybe you were the fixer. Or the forgotten one. Maybe your pain wasn't acknowledged, so you learned to bury it. As a child, you had no choice. You adapted. But now, that survival strategy has become a barrier. You might be 35, 45, 60 years old. But the walls you built at 8 years old are still standing. protecting you, isolating you. And that's the tragedy of it. Because the same walls that protect your pain also block your connection. The mask of competence. Let's talk about one of the most common emotional walls, competence. The belief that you must always appear strong, capable, unshakable. This wall looks like success. It looks like high achievement. But underneath, it's loneliness. People may admire you, respect you, but they don't know you. Because the moment you let someone in, you risk being seen as less. And if you believe love is conditional on performance, you'll never let anyone close enough to see your flaws. You'll perform instead of connect. You'll impress instead of relate. But connection doesn't live in your polished parts. It lives in your truth. The fear of being too much or not enough. Another common wall is the fear of emotional rejection. What if I share this part of me, and it's too much? What if I'm not enough for them to stay? This fear creates distance. You withhold affection. You filter your truth. You keep the messy parts of you hidden, just in case. But connection is only possible where vulnerability exists. And vulnerability always carries risk. The risk of being misunderstood. The risk of being seen and not accepted. But without that risk, there is no reward. Let me ask you, what wall are you still carrying? Who taught you that it wasn't safe to be seen? It's not about blame. It's about awareness. Because until you name your wall, you can't lower it. Real-life reflection. Mara's story. Mara was a therapist. Brilliant. Empathic. Always present for others. But in her own life, disconnected. Her relationships felt scripted. Surface level. One day, a mentor asked her, "Mara, when was the last time you cried in front of someone?" She froze. Not because she didn't have moments of pain, but because she believed being emotional made her unprofessional. That belief was her wall. She wasn't cold. She was terrified. Terrified of being seen as weak. Terrified of someone walking away once they saw the whole truth. It wasn't until she let that wall come down, just once, in a small conversation with a friend, that she realized something profound. The people who truly care don't leave when they see the real you. They lean in. And after that day, her relationships changed. Not all of them lasted, but the ones that did, deepened in ways she never imagined. How to begin lowering your walls. You don't have to bulldoze them. You don't have to confess everything in one night. Just start small. Here's how. Name the fear behind your wall. Is it rejection? Judgment? Shame? Practice sharing one truth a little earlier than you usually would. Watch the response. Let it teach you what's safe and what still needs healing. Surround yourself with safe people. Those who hold space, not throw stones. And remember, lowering a wall doesn't mean becoming unguarded. It means choosing to be real in moments that matter. Before we continue, if this chapter has touched something inside you, take a second to like, subscribe, and share the channel. There's someone else out there who needs this message, and you might be the bridge that helps them find it. Chapter 3. Listening Beyond Words. What if the key to connection wasn't what you say, but how you listen? There's a kind of listening that changes everything. Not the kind where you nod politely. Not the kind where you wait for your turn to speak. But the kind where time slows down. Where the other person leans in. Where they feel, without a doubt, that you're with them. That kind of listening is rare. And it's unforgettable. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly heard? Not tolerated. Not quickly advised. But deeply, fully heard? If you're like most people, it's been a while. Because real listening, soul listening, is a skill most of us were never taught. The 3 levels of listening. Most people listen on the surface. But there are 3 levels of listening. Only one of them creates true connection. Let's break them down. Level 1. Self-centered listening. This is where most conversations live. You're listening, but only to respond. Only to relate it back to you. That reminds me of when you think that's bad? One time you should try. It's well-intentioned, but it pulls the spotlight back to you. Connection dies here. Because the person speaking no longer feels like the main character in their story. They become a background actor in yours. Level 2. Solution-oriented listening. This sounds like care, but it's really control. Here's what you should do. Have you tried this? You just need to think positive. You're trying to help, to fix, to lift them up. But in doing so, you bypass the most important thing, their pain. And pain that's bypassed festers. What people need first is not solutions. They need space. Space to feel. To be human. To not be okay. Only when they feel seen can they truly begin to change. Level 3. Soul-level listening. This is the sweet spot. The gold. You're not thinking about what to say next. You're not scanning for solutions. You're just there. Your eyes soften. Your energy slows. Your heart opens. And without realizing it, the other person breathes deeper. They feel safer. Because now, they're not alone in it. You've joined them. Not with advice, but with presence. Why we struggle to listen. Real listening is hard. Not because we don't care, but because we're uncomfortable with discomfort. We rush to respond because silence feels awkward. We give advice because helplessness feels intolerable. We change the subject because pain feels contagious. But the truth is, discomfort is not the enemy of connection. Discomfort is the doorway. The question is, can you stay present long enough to walk through it? Real-life reflection. Aaron's story. Aaron was known as the go-to guy in his family. Need a plan? Ask Aaron. Need advice? Call Aaron. But deep down, Aaron was tired. No one ever asked how he was. No one ever listened to him. Until one day, he broke down in front of his sister. I'm always helping, but no one ever just sits with me. His sister paused. She didn't say a word. She didn't rush to make it better. She just reached out, took his hand, and let the silence speak for her. That moment was the first time Aaron felt. And it changed everything. He didn't need a solution. He needed a witness. The art of reflective listening. Want to practice level 3 listening? Here's how. Echo the emotion. Instead of reacting to the story, reflect the feeling underneath it. That sounds really overwhelming. You must feel exhausted. It sounds like that really hurt. Let silence breathe. Don't rush to fill the quiet. Silence is a sacred space where people find their own clarity. Stay curious, not certain. Ask questions that invite deeper exploration. What was the hardest part of that for you? How did that make you feel? What do you need right now? Validate before you offer. Before you give advice, validate their experience. That makes so much sense. Anyone would feel that way. Thanks for sharing that with me. You'll be amazed how connection deepens when someone feels understood before being advised. Here's the truth. People don't open up because you have the right answers. They open up because you offer the right energy. A soft energy. A present energy. An energy that says, you're safe here. Let me ask you something. Can you commit, this week, to listening without fixing? To letting someone else feel heard, even if you don't have the right words? You don't need the perfect response. You just need to stay. Because staying is the new superpower. And listening is how love speaks. Chapter 4. The Roots of Emotional Safety. What makes someone lean in, while others pull away? It isn't charisma. It isn't how funny or attractive you are. It's not even what you say. It's how you make people feel. Do they feel safe around you? Not just physically safe, but emotionally safe. That's where real connection begins. And where it either grows or quietly dies. Let's pause for a moment. Before we go deeper, if this audiobook is helping you see things more clearly, take a second to like, subscribe, and share the channel. You never know who needs this message today. What is emotional safety? Emotional safety is the invisible glue of all meaningful relationships. It's the felt sense that says, I can be real with you. I don't have to filter myself here. Even if I'm messy, I won't be judged. When someone feels emotionally safe, they relax. their guard drops, their nervous system settles, and most importantly, they begin to open. But when safety is missing, walls go up, words get filtered, connection becomes performance, and eventually, people withdraw. The science behind safety. Your brain has a built-in alarm system, the amygdala. Its job is to detect threats, emotional or physical. When someone criticizes you, interrupts you, or shames you, even subtly, that alarm goes off. The body tenses. The breath shortens. The mind retreats. Now you're no longer connecting. You're surviving. That's why even small things, a raised voice, an eye roll, a sarcastic comment, can quietly sever trust. Because the nervous system remembers. So the question becomes, how do we create spaces where people feel safe to show up fully? Safety starts with consistency. Let me ask you something. Do people know what version of you they're going to get? Are you steady? Or are you unpredictable? Warm one moment, distant the next? One of the greatest gifts you can give someone is emotional consistency. It doesn't mean you're perfect. It means you're predictable in your kindness. You don't lash out when things get hard. You don't weaponize their vulnerability later. You don't make love conditional on behavior. You're a steady presence in a world full of volatility. And that is rare. Real-life reflection. Lena and her father. Lena grew up walking on eggshells. Her father wasn't abusive, but he was unpredictable. Some days, he was warm. Other days, cold. He'd say, "I'm proud of you 1 week, and you're a disappointment the next." As a child, Lena internalized a dangerous message: love is unstable. Trust no one fully. And that belief followed her into adulthood. She sabotaged healthy relationships, pushed away people who cared, and clung to those who kept her guessing. It wasn't until therapy that she connected the dots. Her father didn't need to hit her to harm her. His inconsistency planted seeds of fear that choked her ability to connect. When she finally began building relationships with emotionally safe people, everything changed. Slowly, she learned what real love felt like: predictable, gentle, honest, even when it hurt. Safety healed what chaos once broke. Habits that build emotional safety. So how do you become that safe space for others? Start here. Be present, not perfect. Show up, even when you don't have the right words, especially when they're struggling. Validate before you advise. Before you offer input, affirm their experience. That sounds incredibly difficult. I can understand why you'd feel that way. Validation opens the door. Advice can wait. Honor vulnerability. When someone shares something personal, treat it like a gift. Don't gossip about it. Don't use it against them. Don't dismiss it. Show them their truth is safe with you. Own your mistakes quickly. If you snap, apologize. If you miss a cue, ask how you can do better. Safety isn't about perfection. It's about repair. The faster you own your missteps, the deeper trust grows. Here's the truth. People will forget your advice. They'll forget your stories. But they will never forget how safe they felt in your presence. Because in a world full of judgment, anxiety, and noise, safety feels like peace. And peace is magnetic. Let me ask you, who in your life feels safest with you? And who do you feel safest with? Now think about what makes that true. What do they do, or not do, that allows you to breathe easier around them? Take those answers, and become that person, for someone else. Chapter 5. Boundaries are bridges. What if the thing you're afraid will push people away is the very thing that brings them closer? Boundaries. It's a word that makes some people flinch. We think of walls. We think of coldness. We think of rejection. But boundaries aren't walls. They are bridges. Bridges that allow connection to flow in both directions, without resentment, without confusion, without losing yourself in the process. Let me ask you something. Have you ever said yes when every fiber of you screamed no? Have you ever smiled through something that hurt? Stayed silent just to keep the peace? That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. And over time, it kills connection. Because when you betray yourself to keep a relationship, you lose both. What are boundaries? Really? Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about honoring yourself. They're the emotional limits you set to protect your well-being, your energy, your time, and your truth. They tell the world, this is how I deserve to be treated. This is what I will allow. This is what I will no longer accept. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary, because love without boundaries turns into obligation, and connection without boundaries becomes resentment. The fear behind boundary struggles. So why do so many of us struggle with setting them? Because we're terrified. Terrified of being seen as rude. Terrified of making others uncomfortable. Terrified of being abandoned. Somewhere along the way, we learned this story: if I set a boundary, I'll lose the relationship. But here's the truth. If setting a healthy boundary ends a connection, that connection wasn't healthy to begin with. Because the people meant for you, they don't leave when you honor yourself. They lean in. They listen. They adjust. Real-life reflection. Isaac's story. Isaac was the yes man. He helped everyone. Stayed late at work. Went to every family gathering. Answered every text within seconds. But inside, he was crumbling. He had no time for himself. No space to breathe. And the worst part? He was angry all the time, and didn't know why. Until one day, in a quiet session with a life coach, he was asked a question that stopped him cold. Isaac, what do you need that you're not giving yourself permission to ask for? The answer? Rest. Respect. Room to say no. That week, Isaac began setting boundaries. He stopped checking work emails after 6 p.m. He declined a party he didn't have the energy to attend. He told his sister he couldn't always be her therapist. It was terrifying. But something happened he didn't expect. The people who truly loved him respected him more. And for the first time in years, Isaac felt connected to himself. Boundaries deepen connection. Here's the paradox. Boundaries don't break connection. They define it. They make relationships clearer, not colder. When someone sets a boundary with you, they're saying, I want this relationship to last. I want to stay connected, and this is what I need for that to happen. Boundaries protect the energy that sustains connection. They allow you to show up fully, without resentment, fear, or hidden expectations. That's not distance. That's depth. How to set boundaries with compassion. Start with clarity, not emotion. Don't wait until you're angry or exhausted. Reflect ahead of time. What drains me? What do I need more of? Where do I feel disrespected? Use I statements. Speak from your truth. Avoid blame. I need more time to recharge on weekends. I'm not available to talk about this right now. I want to support you, but I can't do it in this way. Hold the line with kindness. It's okay if others are uncomfortable. You're not responsible for their reaction, only your integrity. Repeat calmly if needed. And stay firm. Celebrate the aftermath. Notice how you feel after setting a boundary. Lighter? Clearer? More present? That feeling is alignment. That's your nervous system saying, thank you. Here's the truth. Boundaries are not the end of connection. They're the beginning of authentic connection. Because in order to be loved for who you are, you have to be who you are. Unapologetically. Gently. Bravely. Let me ask you, what is one boundary you need to set this week? What is one place you've been saying yes out of fear, instead of truth? Choose one. Honor it. And watch what shifts in your relationships, starting with the one you have with yourself. Chapter 6. When connection isn't love. Why are we drawn to people who hurt us, and distant from those who are good for us? It's a quiet pain. One you don't always recognize. You feel close to someone. Attached. Even obsessed. But deep down, something feels off. You're not growing. You're shrinking. You're not peaceful. You're anxious. And still, you stay. Because it feels like love. But it isn't. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a relationship, romantic or otherwise, where you kept reaching for someone who only offered you breadcrumbs. They weren't fully there, but you kept hoping, waiting, sacrificing. That wasn't love. That was attachment. And there's a difference. The emotional hunger that masquerades as love. Psychologists often describe emotional hunger as the illusion of connection. It's that desperate need to be chosen, validated, saved. But it's rooted in lack, not wholeness. Real love is steady. Emotional hunger is chaotic. Love says, I choose you, even when it's calm. Emotional hunger says, I need you, or I'll collapse. Love grows slowly. Hunger strikes fast. Love brings peace. Hunger brings obsession. And many of us confuse the two. Because we've been conditioned to believe that intensity equals intimacy. It doesn't. Trauma bonds, when the pain feels familiar. One of the most misunderstood forms of attachment is the trauma bond. This is when you feel magnetically connected to someone. But the connection is actually driven by unresolved pain. Maybe you had a parent who was emotionally unavailable. And now you're drawn to people who do the same. Not because it's right, but because it's familiar. The nervous system doesn't seek what's healthy. It seeks what's known. That's how people end up in cycles, begging for love, chasing inconsistency, a mistaking drama for depth. Trauma bonds often begin with intensity, fast closeness, high chemistry, deep confessions early on, but they're followed by instability, hot and cold, push and pull, moments of closeness followed by confusion. And every time you're rejected, you want them more. It's not love. It's a survival loop. And breaking it takes awareness, courage, and healing. Real-life reflection. Jasmine's story. Jasmine met Caleb at a time when she was most vulnerable. Her father had passed. Her self-esteem was low. She just wanted someone to see her. Caleb was charming, intense, mysterious. He called her his person within days. Shared his past, his pain, his dreams. It felt magical. Until it didn't. He began disappearing for days. Blaming her for everything. Tearing her down, then pulling her close again. Jasmine stayed. Not because she didn't see the red flags, but because part of her believed this pain was normal. It wasn't until she heard the term trauma bond that something clicked. She realized she wasn't in love with Caleb. She was in love with the fantasy of being healed through him. But the healing she needed had to start with her. How to tell if it's love or attachment? Ask yourself, do I feel safe in this connection, or always on edge? Or am I sacrificing my peace just to be chosen? Or do I feel more myself, or less, when I'm with this person? Or can I express my needs, or do I fear it will push them away? If you constantly feel unworthy, anxious, or confused, you're not in love. You're in a loop. And loops can be broken. Healing from unhealthy attachment. Reconnect with your body. Trauma lives in the nervous system. Practice breathwork, grounding, and body scans to restore inner safety. Name the pattern. Say it out loud. I feel addicted to inconsistency. I'm drawn to what feels familiar, not what feels right. Naming creates power. Build safe connections. Seek out people who are emotionally stable, honest, and gentle. It may feel boring at first, but boring is often safe. Get support. Therapy, coaching, or support groups can help you untangle the past from the present. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in safe relationship. Here's the truth. If you grew up with chaos, peace will feel unnatural at first. If you learned to chase love, stillness will feel like silence. But give it time. Eventually, your body will learn that calm is not danger, it's home. Let me ask you, what are you still calling love? That's actually wounding you. What connection are you still holding on to? Not because it heals you, but because it reflects the pain you never processed? It's okay to let go. Because the moment you stop chasing intensity, you begin to discover something gentler, deeper, and more nourishing. That's where real love lives. Chapter 7. How lasting connections are built. If love isn't magic, then what is it really made of? We talk about clicking with people. We talk about chemistry. We talk about fate. But the truth? Lasting connection isn't something you fall into. It's something you build. One decision at a time. One small moment at a time. Through effort. Through intention. Through presence. The strongest relationships don't rely on perfect compatibility. They rely on consistent care. Let me ask you something. Who in your life has stood the test of time? Who's shown up, not just when it was easy, but when it was hard? Chances are, it wasn't because of grand gestures. It was because of the little things. The steady things. The quiet, often unseen things. That's the blueprint of real connection. The myth of effortless. We've been sold a lie: if it's right, it'll be easy. But nothing meaningful is always easy. Yes, there can be flow. Yes, there can be harmony. But every lasting relationship has moments of friction. Moments of misunderstanding. Emotional triggers. Personal growth at different speeds. The difference is this. In real connection, conflict doesn't mean collapse. It means conversation. You repair instead of retreat. You lean in instead of shutting down. You work through, not walk away. That's what builds longevity. The 4 foundations of lasting connection. According to psychology research and countless studies on emotionally healthy relationships, these are the pillars that strong connections are built on. 1. Emotional availability. Can you both be open, vulnerable, honest? Or are emotions met with shutdown, shame, or silence? Emotional availability doesn't mean constant deep talks. It means you can go there when needed. 2. Mutual respect. Do you feel heard, even when you disagree? Are your boundaries honored? Is your voice considered equal? Respect isn't just about tone. It's about behavior, over time. 3. Shared values. What matters most to you? Honesty? Growth? Freedom? Family? Values shape direction. If you don't walk in the same direction, love alone won't hold it together. 4. Relational effort. Are you both trying? Not perfectly. Not identically. But genuinely? Effort looks like taking responsibility for mistakes. A showing up, even when tired. A learning each other's love language. Relationships die when one person stops trying, or when both wait for the other to go first. Real-life reflection. Eli and Noor. Eli and Noor met during a work project. At first, it was chemistry. They laughed easily, finished each other's sentences. But a few months in, the differences showed up. Eli was direct. Noor was sensitive. Eli processed fast. Noor needed time. Arguments happened. Silences stretched. But here's the difference. They talked. They read books together. They sought therapy, early, not as a last resort. They apologized without ego. They listened without defensiveness. And over time, their love didn't just survive. It deepened. Because they didn't just love each other's best moments. They loved through the hard ones, too. And that's what made it real. The power of repair. Every connection has cracks. The ones that last, repair those cracks. Psychologist Dr. John Gottman, in his decades of research on relationships, found something remarkable. It's not whether couples fight that predicts their success. It's whether they repair. Do they turn toward each other after conflict? Do they say "I'm sorry" with sincerity? Do they seek to understand, not just to win? Repair is where trust is rebuilt. It's where wounds close. It's where love becomes durable. Building connection in daily life. Lasting connection isn't built in one grand gesture. It's built in the everyday. Try this. Ask deeper questions. What's really been on your heart lately? Give full presence. No phones, no multitasking. Offer appreciation often. I noticed you did that. Thank you. Small acts. Big impact. That's how the foundation is laid. Here's the truth. Connection doesn't happen by accident. It's built by intention. When two people choose, over and over again, to meet in the middle. To keep showing up. To keep growing. Not because it's perfect, but because it's worth it. Let me ask you, What are you doing today to invest in the connections you care about? Not later. Not when things are smoother. But now. Because what you nurture grows. And what you neglect withers. Love is not just a feeling. It's a practice. Chapter 8. Growing Together Through Change. What do you do when life moves you in different directions, but your heart still wants to stay connected? Change. It's the one constant in every relationship. We grow. We evolve. We become someone new. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes overnight. And the question becomes, can your connection grow with you? Or will it stay stuck in who you used to be? Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone you once felt so close to and thought, I don't even know who they are anymore? Or worse, I don't know who I am with them anymore. That's not failure. That's change. But change doesn't have to mean the end. Sometimes, it's an invitation to know each other again, to meet again, to love each other in a new way. Why change feels like distance. We're taught to expect stability in relationships. But people are not static. They shift. Their needs evolve. Their dreams morph. Sometimes it's one person who changes. A new job. A spiritual awakening. A trauma. A transformation. And suddenly, what once worked no longer fits. This is where many relationships begin to drift. Not because there's no love, but because there's no update. We stop asking questions. We assume we already know. We get lazy with curiosity. And the result? We wake up next to strangers. Real-life reflection. Olivia and Marcus. Olivia and Marcus had been married for 12 years. They shared everything. Kids, a home, a history. But somewhere between the schedules and the survival, they stopped seeing each other. They still loved each other. But the conversations turned transactional. How was your day? Did you pay that bill? Can you pick up the groceries? One night, Olivia sat across from Marcus and said, I miss you. He looked confused. I'm right here. But she didn't mean his body. She meant his presence. That night, they made a promise. To start dating each other again. To ask real questions. To get curious about who they were now. Not just who they'd been. It wasn't instant. But day by day, the spark returned. Because they chose to meet again. Right in the middle of their evolution. How to stay connected through change. Embrace curiosity, ask questions as if you're just getting to know them. What's something you've been thinking about lately? What scares you these days? What's lighting you up right now? Don't assume you know. Ask anyway. Create space for reintroduction sometimes. The person they're becoming scares you because it's unfamiliar. Instead of resisting it, get to know it. Say, you feel different lately. Tell me what's been shifting in you. I want to understand where you're at, even if it's new. Name the distance. Gently if you feel the drift. Don't wait for it to grow. Say, I feel like we're missing each other lately. I love you, and I want to reconnect. Can we make space to talk? Most people don't drift because they don't care. They drift because they don't know how to reconnect. You can be the first to reach out. Honor their growth without taking it personally. Sometimes people change in ways that scare us. They get healthier, more expressive, more independent. Don't see it as a threat. See it as an invitation to grow alongside them. Say, I love how you're evolving. How can I support this version of you? Connection is not about locking someone into who they were. It's about celebrating who they're becoming. The truth about long-term connection. Every lasting relationship is a series of reunions. You meet each other again, and again, and again. Through joy, through grief, through growth, through identity shifts. The strongest connections? They don't resist change. They adapt with it. Because change doesn't have to mean goodbye. It can mean, let's find our way back to each other. Again. Let me ask you, is there someone in your life you've stopped truly seeing? Someone you've placed in a box labeled, I already know them. What would happen if you approached them today, as if meeting them for the first time? Would you discover something new? Would they? Don't wait for connection to decay. Choose to revive it. With presence. With courage. With curiosity. Chapter 9. Letting go with love. What if the hardest goodbye is actually the most loving thing you can do? We grow up believing that real connection means forever. But sometimes, the most honest, most sacred act of love is knowing when it's time to let go. Not out of anger. Not out of bitterness. But because you've outgrown what no longer fits your soul. Because the connection, once beautiful, is now breaking you in quiet ways. And staying would cost you more than leaving ever could. Let me ask you something. Have you ever held on to someone, not because it felt right, but because letting go felt unbearable? Because the memories whispered, you can't leave this behind. Because the idea of starting over felt too painful to face? You're not alone. We all carry connections that feel unfinished. Stories that never wrapped up neatly. People who meant something deep, but couldn't stay. And it hurts. But here's the truth. Not all connections are meant to last. Some are meant to awaken you, teach you, break you open, and then let you go. Why we hold on too long? There's a grief that comes with endings. Even if the relationship was painful. Even if the friendship grew toxic. Even if you know it's time. Because letting go isn't just about losing someone. It's about losing a version of yourself. The version that hoped. The version that believed. The version that felt seen, even if only for a moment. And so we stay. Not for love, but for fear. Fear of loneliness. Fear of regret. Fear of having to face the parts of us that got buried in that bond. But fear is not a foundation. And if you stay where your spirit is shrinking, you're not saving a connection. You're sacrificing your truth. Real-life reflection. Camille's story. Camille and Aria were best friends for over a decade. They did everything together. College. Careers. Heartbreaks. Healing. But as the years passed, Camille began to grow in new directions. She started therapy. Set boundaries. Began healing old wounds. And slowly, Aria began to pull away. She mocked Camille's growth. Dismissed her boundaries. Grew resentful of the changes. Camille tried to shrink herself to keep the friendship alive. But one day, after a painful argument, Camille sat in her car and whispered, "I don't feel safe with her anymore." And in that moment, she knew. Love was still there, but it was no longer enough. The friendship had served its season. And now, it was time to let go. Camille didn't write a dramatic farewell. She just stopped chasing. And in doing so, she reclaimed her peace. How to let go without guilt. Honor the story. Not every ending is a failure. Some are simply a conclusion. Say to yourself, this connection changed me. It mattered, even if it didn't last. I'm grateful, and I'm done. Feel the grief fully. Don't rush to numb the pain. Cry. Write letters you never send. Name what you're mourning, not just the person, but the version of you they represented. Release the role. Sometimes we hold on because we don't know who we are without that identity. Who are you when you're no longer the helper? The fixer? The one they depended on? You're still whole, even without the role. Forgive yourself for staying too long. You weren't weak. You were hopeful. You stayed because you loved. But now, you love yourself enough to leave. Here's the truth. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you finally chose truth over comfort. Peace over performance. Growth over guilt. And maybe one day, you'll think of them. Not with pain. Not with longing. But with quiet thanks. Thank you for who you were. Thank you for what we shared. Thank you for the lesson. And then you'll take a deep breath and keep walking. Free. Clear. Whole. Let me ask you, is there a connection in your life that no longer nourishes you? One that feels heavy, hollow, or misaligned? What would it look like to let go, not with rage, but with reverence? Not as punishment, but as permission? Permission to evolve. Permission to breathe. Permission to move forward with love, and without them. Chapter 10. Coming home to yourself. What if the connection you've been chasing is the one you've been avoiding? We long to be chosen, seen, heard, loved. But often, we seek that love out there, because it's been missing in here. We give our best energy to relationships with others, but forget the most important relationship of all, the one we have with ourselves. And when that connection is broken, everything else suffers. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with yourself? Not to fix, not to judge, but just to listen. No distractions. No performances. Just presence. For many of us, it's been far too long. The loneliness inside. You can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Because true connection isn't about proximity. It's about presence. And the absence of self-connection creates a hunger we often try to fill with over-pleasing, overworking, over-giving, over-loving others, just to feel worthy. But it never satisfies. Because you can't outsource the kind of love that must begin within. Real-life reflection. Darius's story. Darius was the life of every room. Funny. Reliable. Always available. People called him the Rock. But when the world got quiet, so did he. Because when no one was watching, Darius felt hollow. He didn't know what he liked, what he felt, or what he needed. He just knew how to be there for others. Until one evening, exhausted and alone, he asked himself, when did I stop being there for me? That was the beginning. Darius started small. Taking walks without his phone. A journaling honestly, no filters. A sitting in silence, even when it hurt. He stopped chasing applause, and started listening to his own voice again. And little by little, the loneliness faded. Because he was no longer abandoning himself. He was coming home. How to reconnect with yourself. Practice internal check-ins instead of asking, what should I do? Ask, what do I feel right now? What do I need? What would honor me in this moment? Create moments of solitude, not isolation. Not distraction. Just stillness. Solitude helps you hear what your soul has been whispering all along. Speak to yourself like someone you love. Notice your self-talk. Would you say that to a child? A friend? A partner? If not, don't say it to yourself. Honor your yes and your no. Stop betraying yourself just to be liked. When you say yes but mean no, your body keeps the score. And over time, the self-trust erodes. Choose alignment over approval. You are not broken. Let me say that again. You are not broken. You are healing, unfolding, remembering. You are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress. Worthy, even as you evolve. And when you stop seeking permission from the world, you begin to realize you were never too much. You just needed to become enough for yourself. Here's the truth. The more connected you are to yourself, the less you chase connection from places that cannot hold you. Because when you know your worth, you stop begging for crumbs. When you feel safe inside your own presence, you stop fearing rejection. When you're rooted in self-love, you attract people who see you clearly, because you see yourself clearly. Let me ask you, what part of you have you been ignoring? What truth have you been silencing? What need have you been denying? This week, give yourself what you keep waiting for others to give you. Attention, affection, approval, forgiveness. Come home. You've been away long enough. Chapter 11. Rebuilding trust, brick by brick. How do you heal something invisible, but essential? Trust. It's the foundation under every relationship. Quiet, unseen, but everything rests on it. And when it breaks, the cracks go deep. Words feel different. Silence feels heavier. And even the smallest moments, ones that used to feel safe, suddenly feel suspicious. Rebuilding trust is one of the hardest things we'll ever do. But it's also one of the most sacred. Because trust, once broken, doesn't return by accident. It's rebuilt, slowly, brick by brick, word by word, action by action. Let me ask you something. Have you ever wanted to trust someone again, but couldn't? Even when they said all the right things. Even when you wanted to let it go. That's because trust isn't a decision. It's a process. And it begins with something most people overlook. Accountability. The anatomy of broken trust. Trust can be broken in 100 small ways. or a lie, or a betrayal, or a promise made and repeatedly broken. But what breaks trust isn't just the action. It's the aftermath. What happens after the mistake? Are they defensive, dismissive, distant, or are they honest, open, and willing to do the work? Because the wound isn't just from what they did. It's from how they handled your pain. Trust is fragile. And when it's fractured, it doesn't grow back through words. It grows back through consistency. Real-life reflection. Aisha and Jonah. Aisha and Jonah had been dating for 3 years. One day, Aisha found messages on Jonah's phone. Nothing physical, but enough to shake the ground beneath her. Jonah admitted to it. Said it was just emotional. Said it meant nothing. But Aisha's heart cracked. Not because of the messages alone, but because she felt the foundation shift. What followed was the real test. Jonah didn't just apologize once. He listened. He took responsibility. He answered hard questions without defensiveness. He gave Aisha time, space, transparency. And months later, when trust slowly began to return, it wasn't because of a grand apology. It was because of the 100 little things he did differently every day. That's how trust is rebuilt. Not with one gesture, but with gentle repetition of integrity. If you broke the trust, here's what rebuilding looks like. From your side. Own everything. Excuse nothing. Say, I hurt you. I take full responsibility. Not, I didn't mean to. But you did this too. Intentions don't heal wounds. Accountability does. Answer the hard questions. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it may take time. But when someone is hurting, they're not just asking for facts. They're asking, can I feel safe again? Don't rush their healing. You don't get to choose the timeline for their forgiveness. Your job is to stay patient, consistent, present. Every I'm trying must be backed by visible change. Build new patterns if you want new trust. Live in a new way. Create routines of honesty. Invite feedback. Show, not just tell, that you're growing. If someone broke your trust, honor the pain. You're allowed to grieve. Even if they're sorry. Even if you forgive. Grief is part of the process. Don't gaslight yourself if something feels off. Pay attention. Your intuition is data. Forgiveness doesn't mean blindness. Ask for what you need. Do you need space? Transparency? Reassurance? Speak it. Let them show if they're willing to meet you in that space. Watch the pattern. Not the promise. Words are easy. Consistency is sacred. You don't need perfect behavior. You need reliable change. Here's the truth. Broken trust doesn't always mean the end. But it does mean the relationship must be rebuilt from a deeper place. And sometimes, that rebuilding isn't possible. Not because you didn't try, but because the other person refused to meet you in that sacred space. And when that happens, letting go is the healing. Because trust isn't just something you give away. It's something that must be earned, nurtured, and protected. And you deserve nothing less. Let me ask you, where in your life is trust wounded? And what step, however small, can you take today to begin the healing? Whether that means owning your part or honoring your boundary, start. Because trust isn't just the foundation of connection with others. It's the foundation of connection with yourself. Chapter 12. Speak so they can feel you. What if your words could be bridges instead of barriers? We've all had moments where we said the right thing and still weren't heard. Or we poured our heart out, only to be met with silence, confusion, or defensiveness. That's because communication isn't just about what you say. It's about what the other person feels when they hear you. And when communication breaks down, it's not usually from a lack of words. It's from a lack of attunement. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling more disconnected than before it began? It's not because your words were wrong. It's because they weren't received. And if you want to master the art of building lasting connections, you need to learn how to speak in a way that people don't just hear. They feel. The nervous system is always listening. Before someone even processes your words, their body is already reacting to you. Your tone, your volume, your energy, your timing. We think communication happens in the brain, but real connection happens in the nervous system. People ask themselves, without knowing it, am I safe with you? Do I feel respected? Can I be real here? And your words either open that door or close it. Why we often miss each other. Most people communicate to be right, not to be understood. They speak to defend, to correct, to unload. But true connection requires more than self-expression. It requires emotional precision. The ability to say, this is what I feel. This is what I need. This is how I want to be close to you. Without blame, without shame, without manipulation. Real-life reflection. Yanel's story. Yanel had been married to Eli for 8 years. They loved each other, but lately, everything turned into a fight. One evening, she said something that stopped him in his tracks. I don't feel close to you anymore, and I don't know how to say that without sounding like I'm attacking you. And for the first time, Eli didn't react. He just sat with it. Because Yanel didn't come at him. She came toward him. Not with blame. With vulnerability. And that's what made the difference. The conversation that night didn't solve everything. But it opened the door to deeper, more honest connection. Because the moment she dropped her armor, he dropped his, too. How to speak with connection instead of control. Start with ownership instead of, you never listen to me. Say, I feel unheard when I'm sharing something important. Own your experience. Stay with the emotion, don't rush to fix, analyze, or justify. Say, I'm not looking for a solution right now, I just want you to hear me. Set the tone before the tension. Match the moment, choose the right time for hard conversations. Don't speak in the heat of reactivity. Speak when presence is possible. When listening is likely. Connection isn't just what you say, it's when and how you say it. Create emotional safety, speak from your heart, not your trigger. If your goal is to be understood, soften your voice. Slow your tone. Lead with I, not you. Words that build connection. Try these in your next hard conversation. This is hard for me to say, but I want to be honest with you. I care about us, and that's why I'm bringing this up. Can we talk about something that's been on my heart? These phrases disarm the nervous system. They signal safety, openness, respect. And from that place, connection can actually grow. Here's the truth. You don't need to speak perfectly. You just need to speak honestly, humbly, humanly. Because when people feel your heart behind the words, they stop listening with their defenses and start listening with their soul. Let me ask you, where in your life are you speaking to be right, instead of speaking to be real? What would shift if you spoke more gently, more vulnerably, more truthfully? This week, try it. Speak not just to express, but to connect. Speak so they can feel you. Chapter 13. The healing power of being witnessed. What if you didn't need to be fixed, just seen? There are moments in life when words fall short. When you're too tired to explain, too raw to make sense of it, too overwhelmed to be anything other than real. And in those moments, what we need most isn't advice. We need a witness. Someone who doesn't flinch at our truth. Someone who doesn't turn away from our tears. Someone who simply says, I see you. I'm here. You're not alone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever shared something deeply vulnerable, only to be met with, at least it's not worse? You just need to be positive. Everything happens for a reason. And suddenly, you shut down. Not because you weren't heard, but because you weren't held. There's a difference between listening and witnessing. What it means to be witnessed. To be witnessed is to be held in your experience without correction, without solution, without pressure. It means, I believe you, and I'm not trying to change your story, and I'm not waiting for you to feel better. It's someone standing with you in the dark, not flipping on the lights too fast. Why we struggle to offer this. Most people are uncomfortable with rawness. They want to help. They want to fix. They want to say something. But in doing so, they often override the most healing thing they could offer: presence. Because deep pain doesn't want a prescription. It wants permission. Permission to exist. To be spoken. To not be rushed. Real-life reflection. Leah's story. Leah had just lost her mother. And in the weeks that followed, her phone blew up with messages. Let me know if you need anything. She's in a better place. Time heals everything. But none of it touched the ache inside her. Until one day, her friend Sam came over, sat beside her on the floor, and said nothing. He didn't try to cheer her up. He didn't talk about silver linings. He just sat there. Leah cried. And he stayed. And when she looked up, eyes swollen, voice shaking, she whispered, "Thank you for not trying to fix me." That was the first moment she felt safe enough to begin healing. Because she wasn't alone anymore. She was witnessed. How to be a safe witness for others. Resist the urge to fix. Ask yourself, am I trying to comfort them, or make myself more comfortable? Sometimes silence is stronger than solutions. Offer presence, not platitudes. Say, I don't have the right words, but I'm here. Thank you for trusting me with this. You don't have to go through this alone. Simple. True. Enough. Hold the emotion without judgment. If someone cries, let them. If they get angry, breathe with them. Your job isn't to control the emotion. It's to create space for it. Follow their lead. Let them set the pace. Ask, would you like me to just listen? Do you want advice, or just presence? Let them be the guide. How to ask for a witness when you need one. Sometimes, what we crave most, we don't know how to ask for. Here's how to say it. I don't need solutions right now. I just need you to sit with me. Can I share something hard? I'm not looking for answers, just a safe space. I don't need to be cheered up. I just need to be heard. Say it clearly. Say it bravely. Say it for the part of you that never got that kind of support before. You're allowed to ask for what you need. Here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You don't need to be healed to be held. You don't need to be strong to be worthy. You just need someone to stay. And sometimes, you need to be that someone for yourself. Because being witnessed isn't just something we receive. It's something we learn to offer, to others, and to ourselves. Over and over again. Let me ask you, where in your life have you been trying to heal alone? And who might be willing to sit beside you, if you dared to let them? This week, allow yourself to be witnessed, and offer that same gift to someone else. Without pressure, without fixing, just presence. That's where the healing begins. Chapter 14. The deep ache to belong. What if the loneliness you feel isn't about being alone, but about being unseen in a crowd? We've all felt it. That quiet ache. That invisible distance between you and the world. You're surrounded by people, yet you feel like a ghost in your own life. You smile when you walk in. You play your role. You laugh when you're supposed to. But underneath it all, you wonder, do I really belong here? Let me ask you something. Have you ever silenced your truth just to stay accepted? Have you ever twisted yourself to fit in, while quietly losing pieces of who you are? That's not belonging. That's bargaining. And every time you bargain for belonging, you trade authenticity for approval, and connection for survival. The difference between fitting in and belonging. Dr. Brené Brown said it best. Fitting in is becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging is being accepted for who you are. Fitting in is about performance. Belonging is about presence. Fitting in requires masks. Belonging asks for your truth. And many of us have never really known the difference. We were praised for our silence, loved for our compliance, accepted when we stayed small. And so we learned, if I'm loud, I'll lose them. If I'm honest, I'll be too much. If I'm different, I'll be alone. But the cost of this kind of survival? It's disconnection from yourself. Real-life reflection. Matteo's story. Matteo was always the easy one. The agreeable friend. The reliable son. The kind employee who never pushed back. He was liked by everyone. But inside, he felt invisible. Because no one really knew him. They knew the version of him that kept the peace. That never asked for more. That never showed his edges. One night, exhausted by the performance, Matteo wrote in his journal, "I've built a life where everyone is comfortable, except me." That was the moment everything changed. He stopped over-explaining. He started saying no. He showed up as himself, even when his voice shook. And slowly, the right people stayed. The wrong ones faded. And for the first time in his life, Matteo didn't feel liked. He felt loved. How to create true belonging. Start by belonging to yourself. This means telling the truth, even when it's scary. Choosing alignment over acceptance. Being your full self, even if it means standing alone at first. Because self-abandonment for connection is not love. Seek out brave spaces, not just safe ones. Safe spaces don't challenge you. Brave spaces let you be seen. Surround yourself with people who invite your honesty, hold your messiness, don't need you to shrink to love you. Speak your unedited truth. Say, "This is what I feel. This is what I need. This is what I believe." Not everyone will understand. But those who matter, those who belong with you, they'll lean in closer. Stop apologizing for existing. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not wrong for wanting more. You're just remembering who you are. And that remembering is the beginning of true belonging. Here's the truth. You weren't born to fit a mold. You were born to be known. And the more you show up as yourself, the more you attract people who say, "There you are. I've been looking for you." Let me ask you, where in your life have you been fitting in, at the cost of your truth? And what would it look like to stop performing and start belonging? This week, take one step. Unmask. Speak. Stand tall in who you are. Because the world doesn't need another version of who you think you should be. It needs the real you. Chapter 15. Holding their pain without losing yourself. How do you love someone through their darkness, without letting it swallow you too? To care deeply is a beautiful gift. But when someone you love is hurting, struggling, breaking beneath the weight of life, it's easy to forget where you end and they begin. You want to help, to fix, to carry them through the storm. But sometimes, in trying to save them, you start drowning, too. Let me ask you something. Have you ever lost yourself in someone else's pain? Have you ever stayed up worrying, overgiving, overfunctioning, because someone you love couldn't carry their own weight? You tell yourself it's compassion. But sometimes, compassion becomes codependence. And there's a thin line between holding space and carrying a burden that was never yours. The weight of empathy. Empathy is powerful. It allows us to sit beside people in their suffering, to say, "I see you. I feel with you. You're not alone." But when empathy isn't grounded, it becomes enmeshment. You start absorbing their pain. You take on responsibility for their healing. You confuse being supportive with being responsible. And eventually, you're not helping anymore. You're disappearing. Real-life reflection. Zara's story. Zara's brother, Luca, battled depression for years. She was his lifeline, his listener, his only source of comfort. And she carried it, every text, every late-night call, every silent fear. But slowly, Zara's world began to shrink. Her joy faded. Her health declined. Her friendships dissolved. Until one day, during a quiet moment, her therapist asked, "What happens if you fall apart, too?" Zara went silent. Because the truth was, no one had ever asked how she was doing. She wasn't just holding space. She was holding everything. That day, she made a quiet promise to still love her brother, but not at the cost of abandoning herself. And that promise saved her life. How to stay grounded while loving deeply. Remember, you can't heal what isn't yours. You can hold space. You can support. But you cannot do someone else's emotional labor for them. Let them own their healing. Set boundaries that protect your energy. It's not cruel to protect your peace. It's essential. Say, "I love you, and I'm here, but I can't be your only lifeline. I want to support you, but I also need rest and space. I'm not ignoring you. I'm taking care of me so I can keep showing up. Pause before you respond. When someone you care about is hurting, ask yourself, am I helping from love or from guilt? Is this my responsibility or theirs? Lead with compassion, not compulsion. Support doesn't mean solving. Your presence is enough. Your love is enough. Your listening is enough. Say, I don't have the answers, but I'm here. That sounds heavy. I'm so sorry you're carrying that. Would you like comfort or ideas right now? Let them guide the kind of support they need. When to let go of the role. Sometimes, you've done all you can. You've shown up. You've held space. You've been steady. But the other person stays stuck. Or they begin pulling you into toxic patterns. Guilt. Manipulation. Emotional chaos. This is when love must look like letting go. Not out of coldness, but out of honesty. Because staying in a role that is slowly eroding you is not loyalty. It's self-betrayal. Here's the truth. You can love someone deeply and still walk away if they refuse to meet you in healing. You can care fiercely and still choose yourself. Because you cannot pour from an empty soul. And the most powerful kind of support is love that's clear, boundaried, rooted in truth. Let me ask you, who are you holding right now? And have you been holding them so tightly that you forgot to hold yourself? This week, check in with your soul. Ask what you need and give it to yourself without guilt. Because the most sustainable love is the love that includes you. Chapter 16. Finding your way back. Is it ever too late to reconnect with someone you once loved deeply? Time passes. Life moves. And sometimes, distance grows quietly between us. Not because of anger. Not because of betrayal. But because life happened. Work got busy. Kids needed attention. Old wounds went unspoken. And suddenly, you're living beside someone, but feeling miles apart. Reconnecting doesn't happen by default. It happens by intention. Let me ask you something. Is there someone in your life you used to be close with? Someone whose laughter used to light up your days. But now, conversations feel hollow or rare. The bond might not be broken, just buried. And buried things can still be unearthed. If both hearts are willing. Why distance happens? It's easy to assume disconnection means something is wrong. But more often than not, distance is just neglect. Unintentional. Unnoticed. We forget to check in. We assume they're fine. We stop asking deeper questions. We fall into routines that leave little room for real presence. Until one day, the silence becomes normal. And the closeness? A memory. But the good news is this. Connection is a living thing. It can be revived, restored, reimagined. If you're willing to reach out again, with honesty and humility. Real-life reflection. Darren and Tasha. Darren and Tasha had been best friends since college. Weekly calls. Inside jokes. Weddings. Babies. But then, life got full. They texted less. Skipped birthdays. Replied with emojis instead of actual words. And slowly, the connection faded. Until one day, Darren sent a message. I miss you. I know we've drifted. But I still care. Want to catch up. Tasha cried reading it. Not because she was angry, but because she had missed him too. That one brave message reignited a friendship that had only been sleeping. And now, they talk every week again. Because someone chose to go first. How to rebuild connection after distance. Initiate without expectation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't expect a certain response. Just reach out. Say, you've been on my mind lately. I know it's been a while, but I still care. Would you be open to reconnecting? Acknowledge the gap gently. You don't have to over-explain. Sometimes, it's enough to say, life pulled us in different directions. I miss what we had. I'd love to rebuild. Owning the distance creates space for honesty. Don't rush the rhythm. Reconnect takes time. Start slow. Share a memory. Ask a real question. Let trust and comfort regrow naturally. Focus on presence, Not the past, don't dwell on blame. Instead of, why didn't you reach out? Say, I'm really glad we're here now. Honor the moment. Create new ones. If they don't reciprocate, not everyone is ready. Some won't respond. Some will, but can't meet you where you are. That's okay. You reaching out was never a mistake. Because love doesn't always need a return. Sometimes, it's enough to know, I said what I needed to say. I honored what mattered. I gave it a chance. Closure isn't always about reconnect. Sometimes, it's about peace. Here's the truth. Connection doesn't die because of time. It dies because of avoidance. But if there's even a flicker of shared history, shared care, shared humanity, there's a path back. It starts with one choice, to care out loud. And to say, without pride, without fear, I still value this. Do you? Let me ask you, who have you drifted from? And what would it mean to reach out? Not to pick up where you left off, but to build something new from where you are now? This week, take the first step. Say the first word. You never know who's been waiting to hear it. Chapter 17. The legacy we leave behind. When you're no longer in the room, what will people remember about you? Not your resume. Not your degrees. Not your bank account. They'll remember how it felt to be around you. Did they feel safe? Did they feel seen? Did they feel like they mattered? Connection is not just something we build in life. It's the legacy we leave behind. Let me ask you something. If your name was spoken in a room full of people who knew you, what feelings would rise? Relief? Warmth? Tension? Silence? We don't often think about the emotional footprint we leave on others. But that footprint, it outlives our presence. It echoes in memories. It becomes part of how people carry us, long after we're gone. What we actually remember. Think about someone who impacted your life in a deep way. Maybe it was a teacher, a grandparent, a friend you only knew briefly. Chances are, you don't remember everything they said. But you remember how they made you feel when you were afraid, you were unsure, or you needed someone to believe in you. That's the power of emotional legacy. It's not carved into stone. It's carved into souls. Real-life reflection. Naomi's story. Naomi lost her father when she was 25. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He didn't leave behind a fortune. But at his funeral, one by one, people stood and shared stories. He always made me feel important, even when I was just a kid. He never rushed a conversation. When he asked how I was, he really meant it. Naomi realized something profound. Her father's greatest achievement wasn't his career. It was the connection he cultivated, in quiet ways, every day. That became his legacy. And now, Naomi lives the same way. Because love like that doesn't die. It's carried. How to live a legacy of connection. Choose presence over performance when people speak to you. Listen with your whole body. Put the phone down. Let them feel they matter more than whatever's pulling your attention. Leave people better than you found them. Ask, did my words build or bruise? Did my presence offer peace or pressure? Let kindness be your signature. Give without keeping score. Legacy isn't about big gestures. It's about consistent love, unattached to credit. Own your mistakes and repair quickly when you mess up, and you will apologize with heart. Model humility. That's what people remember most. Not that you never failed, but that you always returned to love. Teaching others through example. Your children, your friends, your partner, your co-workers. They're watching. Not your words, your patterns. How you handle frustration. How you speak about others. How you hold space, or withhold it. Your way of being becomes permission for others. Permission to soften. Permission to open. Permission to connect. Be someone whose energy teaches more than their advice. Here's the truth. At the end of your life, no one will care how many followers you had. How many titles you held. How perfect your image looked. They'll remember the time you listened without judgment. Loved without conditions. Showed up when no one else did. They'll remember how their soul felt safer near yours. That's the legacy. That's the mark of a life that mattered. Let me ask you, what kind of emotional footprint are you leaving behind? And what would shift if today you chose to make your presence feel like a soft place to land? This week, be intentional with your energy. Speak less to impress. Show up more to connect. Because when you're gone, they won't remember your words. They'll remember your heart. Final chapter, the heart of lasting connection. It was never about being liked. It was always about being real. Connection isn't a talent. It's not reserved for the extroverted, the charismatic, the perfectly spoken. Connection is a choice. A daily choice to show up with your presence, your honesty, your imperfect, beautiful humanness. And when you choose that enough times, you don't just build relationships. You build real ones. The kind that hold you together when everything else falls apart. The kind that remind you who you are when you forget. The kind that say, without words, you belong here. Let's pause for a moment. If this journey has moved you, if you've felt seen in any chapter, please like, subscribe, and share this audiobook with someone who may need it too. Help us bring this message of real human connection to more hearts. What you've learned, what you now carry. You've learned that connection isn't about being everything to everyone. It's about being real with someone. A staying when it's hard. A listening beyond the surface. A holding space without fixing. A loving yourself enough to set boundaries. A letting go when love turns into survival. You've learned how to communicate with care. A rebuild after betrayal. A witness without rescuing. A reconnect after long silence. A offer presence instead of performance. You've discovered the strength in softness. The courage in stillness. The safety in truth. And perhaps most importantly, you've remembered yourself. Because every lasting connection begins with one. The one you hold with you. Real life reflection. Maybe this is you. Maybe you've lived your whole life thinking connection was for other people. The confident ones. The social ones. The ones who had something special. But now you know better. Connection doesn't begin with who they are. It begins with how you choose to show up. Today. Tomorrow. Again and again. Not perfectly. Not always easily. But intentionally. The lifelong practice. Mastering the skill of building lasting connections isn't a finish line. It's a way of being. It means living with open ears. A soft heart. Clear boundaries. A fierce honesty. A gentle strength. It means choosing to be present when it would be easier to numb. To stay when it would be easier to scroll. To speak your truth when it would be easier to smile and say, I'm fine. And in doing so, you change the world, not in volume, but in depth. Here's the truth. The world doesn't need more people who talk louder. It needs more people who love deeper. People who pause to really hear. Who offer kindness before correction. Who sit with you in your storm instead of throwing you a list of solutions from the shore. That's you now. You are that person. And the world is better for it. Let me ask you one final thing. Who will you be, now that you understand what connection really means? Not who the world expects. Not who you were taught to be. But who you are, when you're most fully human. That version of you. That's the one worth sharing. Again and again. Thank you for listening to Master the Skill of Building Lasting Connections. Written and published by Elevate Book. If this audiobook has touched your heart, please leave a review, share it with someone you love, and revisit these chapters whenever you need a reminder that you are worthy of real connection. And more importantly, you are capable of creating it. Always.